If you've been scrolling through endless pages of stereo microscopes, juggling spec sheets, and trying to picture how each one would actually sit on your workbench, you're not alone. The moment you think you've narrowed it down, a new feature pops up and you end up wondering whether you'll end up with a tool that just gathers dust or one that actually speeds up your inspections. That uncertainty is exactly why I'm breaking down the AmScope SM8TZ 144S 10M today, so you can walk away knowing if this is the rig that fits your workflow or if you should keep looking. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the kind of environment where this microscope is meant to live. The SM8TZ comes on a pillar-type articulating arm that stretches up to 40 inches, which means you can mount it over a bench, a table, or even a large specimen tray without having to shuffle heavy base plates around. I've seen hobbyists trying to cobble together makeshift stands from camera tripods, and they end up with wobble the moment they tighten the focus. With AmScope's arm, the whole unit feels anchored, and the clamp option lets you attach it to a sturdy edge of a workbench, freeing up floor space. That long reach is a real time saver if you're dissecting circuit boards, examining geological thin sections, or even doing small-scale soldery work. Now, the trinocular part often gets tossed around as a fancy term, but in practice, it's about how you view and capture what you see. The SM8TZ gives you two eyepieces for simultaneous binocular viewing plus a third port where you can slip a camera or a second eyepiece. For anyone who needs to document findings on the spot, say a forensic analyst photographing trace evidence or a teacher showing students a live view on a monitor, this is a genuine convenience. You don't have to constantly detach and reattach a camera. The camera can stay mounted while you keep working with your eyes. That eliminates the loose focus while swapping gear frustration that crops up with many lower-end models. The zoom range runs from 0.7 to 4.5 thanks to the continuous zoom objective. In real-world terms, that translates to being able to glance over a whole PCB at low power, then smoothly dial in to examine a single micro-solder joint without moving the whole arm. The transition is fluid. There's no click stop that forces you to readjust focus each time you change magnification. I've watched technicians on YouTube who complain that changing objectives on a stereo microscope forces them to re-zero the focus each time, something that adds minutes to an already tight repair window. With this model, the focus stays locked as you zoom, which is a subtle but impactful efficiency boost. Lighting is where many stereo microscopes trip up, especially when you move from bright lab lighting to a dim workshop. The SM8TZ's removable LED ring, powered by a 144 bulb array, offers rheostat control so you can dial the intensity from a soft glow-up to a bright, shadow-free wash. The ring is detachable, which means you can replace it with a different light source if you have a specialized LED panel you prefer. In practice, that flexibility shines when you're looking at specimens that reflect a lot of light like glossy circuit boards versus matte surfaces, such as wood or mineral samples. The ability to dim down without introducing flicker is a genuine advantage over cheaper microscopes that rely on a single, non-adjustable LED. But no piece of equipment is without trade-offs, and the SM8TZ is no exception. One practical weakness is the weight of the articulating arm when fully extended. At full reach, the arm can feel top-heavy, especially if you're using the camera port and have a DSLR mounted. That means you need a solidly bolted workbench or a sturdy table edge, otherwise you'll notice a slight sag after an hour of use. It's not a safety hazard, but it does require you to think about where you're installing it. For a small home hobbyist with a flimsy folding table, that could become an annoyance. Another point that often catches first-time buyers off guard is the learning curve for the rheostat-controlled LED. The dial is smooth, but it can be a bit too sensitive for people who are used to click-type brightness switches. You'll find yourself nudging it back and forth until you hit the sweet spot, which can be a tiny bit frustrating if you're in a rush. Once you get the feel, it's fine, but it's worth noting that the control isn't as click-and-stay as some competing models. The price tag sits in the mid-range for professional stereo rigs, higher than entry-level hobby units, but well below high-end research microscopes. The value really comes from the combination of the long-reach arm, the true trinocular port, and the continuous zoom that stays in focus. If you're a student who just needs occasional magnification for biology projects, you'll probably be overpaying. Conversely, if you're an electronics repair shop owner who routinely needs to document failures and share live feeds with remote engineers, the added